deep breath and remember who you are. Yeah, they're gonna mess with you, baby, you're a star. Stepping in the spotlight, you know that it feels right. Time to put up a fight, honey. Got nothing left to lose, so let's start right now. Everybody want a piece of you. Gotta give them what they want, it's true. You're so funny, yeah, so iconic. If you didn't know before, now you know. Now you know. Take a big step away from who you were. Flashing that smile and the whole world's a blur.
The whole world is a blur. Can't say it any better than that. Powerfully positive Scott Fitzgerald alongside Stacey Steinmiller for once again another exploration into the depths of our black dark psyche. We are gonna have to update this because now it's EDT and not EST. But I mean, that's
I was thinking about that the other day.
Only time nerds would get that, like me. All right, so disclaimer time. This is actually a pre-recorded live stream. It's live, but it's recorded, so it's not live, but it's live. Does that make sense? We had to do this ahead of time because of a scheduling conflict, but just still leave your comments down below, and we can respond to them at a different time. If we don't respond immediately, we're not ignoring you. We're just not here at the moment. But we didn't want to miss out on this conversation because honestly, Stacey, this conversation every week is something that I look forward to. That plus the group that I'm in of yours. Those are highlights of my week because it's a moment of centering for me. It's a moment of clarification, and I hope that that's what other people can get from this is a chance to sit down for a minute and kind of think about things and just examine them. And you know what I mean? Like stop moving, look around, take a breath and go, what's going on? So today we wanted to talk about because of like a weather change and the sun coming out, and it kind of makes a huge difference in our day, and both of us were going into this going, I don't really want to do it. Like yesterday we were supposed to record, but I was like, I can't do it. I'm not in the right frame of mind. And being in the right frame of mind to talk about being positive is it's key. It really is key. So today I'm doing better. Today I had to actually psych yourself up to jump on board. So like, what did we do to do that?
Yeah.
How did we psych ourselves up?
Such a great question. Yeah. And I think, it's interesting too, like that pressure, like you're saying, like, oh, we're doing a podcast about being positive. So, oh shit, we've got to be positive, that whole thing. And that's something, just like my job as a coach, that has been really interesting because even as a therapist, I didn't feel that same pressure, if that makes sense. There's something oddly different about it that I haven't quite put my finger on yet exactly, but it's different. So yeah, I was just kind of feeling a little blah this morning, and I'm like, ugh, like I really wanted to text you. I like even opened up my phone and I was going to be like, well, I'll just see if he's got like a later time. And then I was like, no, Stacey, don't. Just go for a run. You're going to feel better.
How many times I do that where I've got something coming up that I'm like, I'm just not aligned with it mentally or emotionally. And I'm like, oh, should I postpone this? Should I, it's rarely something that I can just outright cancel. It's usually, can we do a different time? Something came up. Right. I've got a conflict, which is not true. I try not to lie to people. But the conflict is actually like, it's an inner conflict. It's not a calendar conflict. It's
right.
So I have a conflict and I can't make this meeting. It just so happens my conflict is my own brain that's going, you suck, or whatever it is,
Yeah. So that's where things like commitment are huge, and taking responsibility for yourself, your dreams, your goals, your ambitions. And that's why I really get into a lot of that deeper stuff in my work with people, because you need that to override the emotional ups and downs of everyday life, you know?
Yeah. And this is weird because this is something that I've had difficulties trying to grab a hold of. So back in 2008, 2009, I got on this journey to become healthier and stronger. So I started doing all kind, and I was in a job at the time where there was tons of downtime. Now, granted, that job didn't last more than 10 months because of all the downtime. But so it was like, there was like 2 weeks out of the month where there was literally nothing going on. You just show up to work at 8:30 and sit there till 5:30 and do nothing. And it killed me, drove me crazy. I invented things to do. Like I wrote a manual for the job. I like did all. So finally, when I ran out of things to invent, I started researching. Like I started thinking to myself, like, I want to change how I am. Tired of being overweight, tired of being this and that. I want to be the healthy dad. So I started researching fitness and nutrition, and this is kind of a point that my wife has with me is like, when I get hyper focused on something, hyper focused is kind of like not even a strong enough term. It's
Obsessed.
like obsessed. Yeah. So I got really into it, but it worked. Like the stuff I was doing really, really worked. I even got to the point where I was writing a blog for one of these fitness tracker software websites.
Oh, cool.
And I was really into it, and I was on like a lot of forums, and people were coming to me and asking me, I was becoming one of those gurus. But I couldn't keep it going.
Oh, interesting.
I couldn't keep it. And it wasn't my lack of interest in it. It was my own mental and emotional well-being on a deeper level that caused me to discard all of that because there was something else that needed to get fixed and I didn't know how to fix it. And so everything was falling apart from there. And it's kind of the same idea of like, because one of the blogs that I wrote was, how bad do you want this? Like, why can't I stop eating ho-hos? Why can't I, like, why? And it was, for me at the time, it was very simple. It was like, how badly do you want this? If you really want it bad, if this is something that you really, really want, you can overcome that. And that's that whole willpower thing. But then I also learned that willpower is finite. There is no endless, chasm of willpower. And so I was unable to keep it going. Eventually I started gaining the weight back. My diet started getting worse. And now I have all the tools and all the knowledge to do that again. But I go, I don't, like, I'm lazy about it. I'm like,
You don't want to fail again.
Well, yeah, maybe that's what it is, but it's this whole, it kind of comes to this whole, for me anyway, this whole concept of calling out of a meeting because I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah.
It's like, I am not feeling any of that anymore. Deep down, I really want to, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm just going to watch a movie, so.
Yeah, the energy collapses. So, but that's the risk of using that kind of motivation alone, because motivation is fleeting, and so forth. So that's where we kind of I like to get more into the deeper worthiness, love, softness, being gentle with ourselves, self-compassion. Because when that side is missing, then it is more like force, willpower. Sometimes you feel like you're punishing yourself or you're a fraud, or, like then that misaligned feelings start coming in. So we also have to have more of this. Oh, I mentioned it yesterday in my other group. It felt like a slow to warm up day. And we were talking about this too, I think. Yeah. that you're like, okay, well, so say you want to sit down and write something, okay, and you don't feel like it. Well, what if you just like cleaned off your desk and like lit a candle and made some tea and put it there? Then you might kind of feel like you were invited to go and sit at your desk, right? And just enjoy it and not give yourself pressure of, I gotta get all these words out. Or, the same thing with getting outside and working out. Like, okay, I'm just gonna put my shoes on. I'm just gonna go outside. What if I just went for a walk, and you just kind of, so you're still moving forward, but you're being less like rigid and ridiculous about it.
Yeah. I tend to be ridiculous about a lot of things. It's I don't know what it is. It's just this, and maybe it is that deep down, that fear of failure, and part of it is because now, when I was doing that before, I was in my 30s, and it was a hell of a lot easier to go for a run and lift weights and then go work all day. And then now, like, I started working out with my son like last year or something. And I was trying to lift the way I used to lift, and I was in pain for like 2 weeks, and I was like, this sucks. I'm like, this wasn't just like, oh, my legs are sore because I worked out. I think I broke both my legs somehow. That was the kind of pain it was. It was so painful. And I'm like, this is not good. So then I'm like, all right, so now I'm in my 50s. So now I have to change my regimen, change what I'm doing because my body physically can't handle it anymore. But then I see these videos of these dudes that are really buff, but they got a big gray beard, which means they must be old. And they're sitting there like, doing this, and they're drinking something, and they're working out with a chair or some crap, and I'm like, well, I should be able to do that, but maybe it's because I can't grow a big gray beard. I don't know.
I think it's that. I think it's the beard for sure. Like,
I can't grow a beard to save my life.
But
I'd never be a hipster.
That's the commitment. They have this commitment where they show up every day to the point where you can eventually do more. But so this is another thing that I talk about a lot because I struggle with it too. Like trying to get to the finish line without even starting the race. You just like,
God, yeah.
like, right. So yeah, if you show up to the gym and try to lift what you were lifting 20 years ago off the gate, then you are setting yourself up for failure. Like, you're not going to have a good time. And
let me correct my okay. So it's not like I jumped in and tried to start squatting 200 pounds. I did the usual progressive lifting where I start with the bar and then I add 5 or 10 pounds every session. But I got to the point
that's
where
still a lot.
Apparently it is. It wasn't before, but apparently it is. Now, instead of adding 5 pounds everything, it's got like I add 5 pounds every other one, or maybe every month or something. It's a slow, more of a gradual progression, which but
which
of course
is not fun, right? We don't
I learned
like
that the hard
There's
way.
no dopamine.
And then I jumped, and then I was like, I can't do it. I'm gonna go eat.
Right, yeah. So it's the uncomfortable. You feel like a failure. It's like, oh, this is too hard. I'm never going to get to where I want to be. Instead of just simply showing up for yourself, like, I'm going to be here and I'm going to work out and I'm going to do what I can, and whatever that looks like today, that's what it looks like today. Because the point is for me to feel happy and healthy and strong, and I know if I'm here, I will feel that versus if I'm on the couch eating ho-hos.
And I'm not going to talk smack about ho-hos. Ho-hos are really good, but let me ask you something. What is your opinion on the idea of auto suggestion, where you repeat to yourself mantras or phrases or something to try to help you break through that habit barrier?
I think you have to have some belief in it to some extent. I would recommend having a 51% belief in what you're saying.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. If you are
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's that whole, like, what is it? The Emile Quay, was that what the every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. You could say that 100 times a day, but unless you believe it, it's not going to mean anything.
Right, exactly. So what I do with people is I find statements that at least have that like 51% or higher,
Yeah.
and then use that. And you can always find that. So I just start adjusting the statements until we get to that point so that there's something to grow from. Then as that statement gets stronger, then you can start to up the statements and make them a little more, bigger and whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's an identity issue. But I think what you're kind of getting to is it really comes down to identity and how you truly see yourself. So, like, if you have to psych yourself up to be a quote healthy person, it means that you don't actually believe you are a quote healthy person, or else you wouldn't need to psych yourself up. Does that make sense?
And I think a lot of this for me, and I don't know if this is true with other people, but it seems like there's always, and you could call them excuses. I call them like just roadblocks, speed bumps, or whatever. So let's say here, I'll paint for you a quasi hypothetical situation. I decide, you know what? I think I'm going to go down and work out. I'm going to start working out again. When I go down in the basement and there's crap everywhere, there's stuff all over the bench. There's just boxes everywhere. My kids had somehow decided to look for something and now there's stuff everywhere. And so now I can't work out because it's going to take me 6 hours to clean the basement to get to work out. So now the workout thing becomes on the back burner. And I said, well, I'm going to work out just as soon as the basement gets cleaned up. But of course, the basement doesn't get cleaned up for 8 months or whatever it is. And it just sits there and it just sits there. And so that is my excuse. And that kind of thing happens all the time where I see something that I want to do, but at the same time, there are these obstacles that are a little bit more complicated than just a little, pick this up and move it over here. It's like a whole process that's going to take phases,
Yeah.
like I can't go inside my new house and lay down and enjoy the TV. If there's no house, I have to build the house. Oh, wait, I have to buy the land to put the house on. There's all of those steps beforehand. And I think that could be for a lot of people where they see all of these steps like, oh, so I've got to go get a gym membership and I've got to deal with some gym bro who's going to try to sell me something that I don't want. I just want to go in there and I just want to do this. And so there's just this list of things that everybody comes up with that becomes now these hurdles that you have to jump over that you don't want to jump over anymore. I don't want to do it. Forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are big blocks because there is always a way. If we can't see it, a part of us doesn't want to see it. We're in resistance to it. Yeah. And I get that they're not always going to be as easy as moving the boxes off the bench press to then use it or whatever it is. But is that easy in that moment. And sometimes they're harder, but there is always a step to take.
And really what it means is that, like, in my mind, it has to be perfect before I start. Whereas if I really wanted to, I could clear a space and I could work out. It might not be the
you
perfect
could go walk
workout,
outside.
But but I could do, like, I could actually say lifting all these boxes is a workout and make a game out of it and do that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I think there's a certain process that at least for me that I have to go through in order to recognize that. And I think that it's that way of thinking that is something that I need to find again. And I wonder if other people are the same way, where you think back, I used to be this, I used to be that, I used to be able to do this and that, but now for some reason I can't. There's something in the process that has now gone wrong, that there's like a mental block, or there's some way that they're not seeing it anymore.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why obviously I'm partial to hiring coaches or whatever, since I am one. But I am one because I really benefited from somebody calling me out. And I'm like terrible. Like, if somebody is the coach and I'm being coached by them, I am the worst. I really am. And that's why I'm really good at my job, because I've put the people that have helped me through hell, and that's why I know all the excuses. I know all the ins and outs, because I was that person, and I still can be. I feel like I've gotten a lot better, but it's really helpful to have somebody call you out, that isn't your friends or your family or, somebody that has some stake in your life or well-being, to some extent.
It's kind of like, the best detectives were once thieves themselves. No,
right. Yeah. Exactly.
Really
right.
True.
You know all the secrets.
But they understand the mindset. They understand that personality, how that person operates, what they think of, all of the different things, so I get it. And that's so I have to think about, imagine coaching yourself.
Yeah, and I do a lot of that.
Thinking to yourself, now you're thinking this way. Why are you thinking this way? Because you're trying to avoid this. So it's like it's like yourself on the couch, which I think just ends up driving people crazy.
Yeah, that's why I like journal. I love journal prompts.
Yes, yeah.
So journal prompts are great, and so sometimes you can do just journal dumps, which can be helpful. You could do 20 minutes, 3 pages, or whatever. But the idea is, do not stop writing. Like, you're not allowed to stop writing. So even if you're writing, I don't know what to write, like, you still need to be writing. If you're like, my wall is gray, whatever it is. So it's not about the content. It's about just getting everything out of your system and just loop. That's called, I think there's a name, Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. If anyone wants to know where that comes from, she's amazing. But then I also personally like journal prompts. And you know how I come up with a lot of my journal prompts is I come up with them for myself, and then you guys get them. So much of what I have created is the kind of asking yourself. I would ask myself questions, and then I would answer and kind of see and work myself through it. And I'd also kind of base it off of a lot of sort of prompting and work that I have done in the past with people to shed the layers and get to like the deeper belief systems that are at play that we're unconsciously aware about. So that's why I say it usually comes down to some identity issue, a true belief issue. Like if you don't truly believe that something will happen, or that you're worthy of something happening, or maybe a fear that if I actually do this and something bad will happen, then we will always find ways to sabotage our success with those excuses. Like, oh, the basement's, a mess, or oh, I've got to do that, whatever it is. It can be the most stupid excuse, but if we still are operating those really deep belief systems, they'll pop up in different ways.
Now, am I silly by thinking being human is a lot of work? Like being a good human, being an effective, what I would consider an effective human for other people is a lot of work. It's a lot of introspection. It's a lot of self-examination. It is and it isn't. I think for some people it is. For some people it's natural. They're like, hey, I'm awesome. I do all these great things and I'm thinking of everybody. But some of us suck at it. They
may exist. I don't know them. I have yet to meet them. Maybe I just don't attract those people into my world. So they could exist, but I have yet to meet them. But I guess I say it is and it isn't, because the answers are always actually pretty simple. So I think we make things really complicated. So that's why I say, like, it is and it isn't.
So my idea that it's difficult is just my own creation that it's difficult.
And that's part of a block itself. Yeah. Exactly. Like, and I got really fed into that one too. So like I said, I know all of them. And that one came from actually, a guy named Scott Peck. I was just, the same first name. He wrote the book, The Road Less Traveled. I read it when I was like, 22. And the first 3 words of his book are. Life is difficult. And I was just like, oh,
he gets me.
Right? I like fell in love with this man, you know? I was like, oh my God, this is the best book I ever read. First 3 words. And
makes more sense than call me Ishmael, but sorry, that's one of the things that I had to learn in school, that, you know, the first words of Moby Dick, call me Ishmael. I don't know why that sticks to my head, but that was on a test. But anyway,
because that was on a test. That's why.
But that's interesting, because it's almost it's stating something that's obvious, but also that isn't true. It's a misnomer. It's something that you've generated in your own head. Life is difficult. Is it? Is it really?
Right, yeah, and I get it. And it's like, yeah, there are a lot of pain and suffering, right? And there's loss, death, you know, tragedy and abuse. And, you know, I've heard all that. I was a trauma specialist. So, you know, yeah, there are some very, very terrible and scary things about the human condition, and I'm not denying that.
Yeah, and I also have to
have it really well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have to admit that if I question that statement that life is difficult, I'm questioning it from a place of privilege. I'm not questioning it from a place of struggle, which someone who's coming from a place of struggle would say, yeah, I mean, that's a valid question. Is life difficult? It has been for me. You know, some people that can be true.
Yeah, and then there's always a continuum there, you know what I mean? Because then there's some of the people that have been in the most, like, more struggling places have grown so much and have found inner peace. You know, there are people that don't have homes that are happier and more peaceful than people that have homes. There are people in prison that are happier and more peaceful than people that aren't. And so when you start to really
they should be
get into that, then you really see the power of the mind and the power that we hold. So, yeah.
Sorry. I just butt in and said, you know, if they're really happy and peaceful in prison, they should probably stay there. And just
I mean, not everybody is in prison for just reasons, right? So there's
that's true, but you would think that the people that were in prison for unjust reasons wouldn't be peaceful and happy. But maybe they just come to that position.
But that's then that's their road. Still, they're still choosing. How do I still choose peace? How do I still right? So that's what I'm saying. Shit. So it's like when you get to these places of people that you would maybe in your mind see as, well, they're obviously a victim, and when you see how they get out of their victim mentality, I'm not denying whatever bad thing happened to them. I'm talking about the mentality that's going on. That's when a lot of change really starts happening. So I found that really powerful for me.
That's a timpani roll moment for sure.
Yeah.
That's all I had. I didn't have anything else for. I mean, we could do a glockenspiel if you want, or an air horn. I don't have a true mic drop moment, but that's really powerful. That idea that there's somebody in prison who doesn't belong in prison, but has then come to have peace with that part of their road, and that like blows my mind if that's the case. Like,
yeah, well, because at some point you have to. I mean, we can bring up the heavy word of forgiveness if you want, but like at some point you have to reach the state of forgiveness, whatever you want to call it, to release yourself of suffering.
And that, oh my gosh, that is something that I've had difficulty understanding, and that's obviously a discussion for another day or another year. Because it's going to take that long. But we, like my wife and I, watch the murder shows, and you know, there's always that one that where the family of the victim, you know, they're after blood for a long time, and they talk about how how they're obsessing with wanting revenge, and that destroys their lives. And when they finally catch the guy 20 years later because of DNA or whatever, and they're in there, and they decide that they've forgiven them for that, and that now they're free, and they feel this peace. And I go, I don't understand that. Like, I want to understand. I mean, I can understand the concept of that happening, but I can't understand the kind of power that it must take for that person to release that, to say, I forgive you for that, and move on. Like, that's just unbelievable to me that someone can do that.
Yeah, that took me a while, but I think with my job and working with trauma, I understand it a lot better. But yeah, it's for, you realize at some point that you're miserable every day because you're choosing to be miserable every day, because you're choosing to focus on the hurt and the desire for revenge or the whatever. And you also realize that none of that's ever going to make your loved one come back or whatever it is. And eventually you have to accept and release that. And so it is very powerful, but it's powerful for yourself, because then you take that burden off your shoulders. But those examples really help to understand how we create our own suffering in so many ways.
Wow. I couldn't think of a better place to end our episode today. It's usually with you dropping some sort of truth bomb on us all. Well, even though at the end of one of these episodes, I'm not quite sure if we talked about anything or if we accomplished anything, but I feel like we did. Hopefully, if you're watching and you're sticking through this 30-minute section of truth bombs from Stacy, something resonated with you and you got something out of this conversation, because that is the point, because we all want to be powerfully positive. Stacy Steinmiller, the coach extraordinaire, I owe so much to you for helping me on this new journey in my life, and I think other people should do that too. They should reach out to you on your various socials and whatnot. Of course, if you're watching this, you probably already know how to get in touch with Stacy Steinmiller. And me, rockfox.com, if you want to do a podcast or any kind of techie cool stuff, I'm here for you. And until next time, can you do me a favor and can you walk away into the pond for the ending? Watch her disappear. This is the best.
Did I look back and wave?